ゲームボーイ世界です。これがSakigake Otokojuku Meikoushima Kessen. Well, it's not a puzzle game, but this latest chapter of Game Boy World, Sakigake Otokojuku Meikoushima Kessen, should still raise a wary alert for the handheld faithful. It's the other thing we've seen too much of on Game Boy, a licensed game. And a bad one at that. In this case, the license falls well into the realm of obscurity. Sakigake Otokojuku has never seen an official US release, and it absolutely never will. This is a deeply Japanese series, one that I find difficult to describe. The manga was nearing the end of its 6-year run by the time this game debuted in 1990, and it had seen a one-season television adaptation about 2 years prior. So it was a moderately popular series, but again, not one bound for the US at any point ever. I guess the best way to describe Sakigake Otokojuku would be like a more violent version of Cromartie High School that gradually did the Dragon Ball thing and shifted from gag manga to fighting manga, and which had a rather puzzling thread of right-wing nationalism woven into it. The Sakigake Otokojuku series centers around a Japanese reform school run by a former World War II hero, an academy that takes the worst teenage delinquents in the country and attempts to whip them into shape, ostensibly through traditional Oendan cheer squad training. Mostly though, it's just a place where the teachers and upperclassmen are completely terrible to the freshmen. Everyone in the series has a sort of Fist of the North Star look to them, stony-faced, massively proportioned, always dead serious in contrast to the over-the-top ridiculousness of the whole affair. As such, it's hard to know just how seriously to take its themes, like that aforementioned nationalistic bent. On one hand, the series seems to ridicule the resentful, hawkish, pro-Japan sentiment that you see in certain ultra-right-wing military magazines and anime. On the other hand, it kind of holds that mindset up as cool, so who knows? Anyway, the hero of the series, if such a thing could be said to exist, is a guy by the name of Momotaro. A cool, laid-back dude, Momotaro is the leader of the freshman class and always seems to remain aloof from the nonsense that afflicts his fellow students, typically stepping in only once things heat up to quietly and efficiently show up some bully, whether that be a faculty member or an entire contingent of gigantic American Marines who come to the academy as exchange students. So in summary, manga and anime, completely unheard of outside Japan, kind of a satire, kind of nationalistic, has some gross ideas about foreigners. And hey, there's a video game about it, which, as you can probably guess, isn't good. Sakigake Otokojuku Meikoushima Kessen, or to the best of my ability to translate it, Charge! Men's Cram School, the decisive battle on Dark Firebird Island, takes its cues from the later volumes of the manga after it stopped being a weirdly cruel gag manga and turned into a typical tournament fighter. So yeah, it's a fighting game. In fact, it's not all that different from Taxan's Fist of the North Star, which we saw back in 1989. There's some irony in that, given the Sakigake Otokojuku began life as something of a satire of Fist of the North Star and its ilk, yet here in the end it results in the same old crap. Being a fighting game that predates Street Fighter II by a good year or so, Meikoushima Kessen plays horribly. You have a single attack button, which allows you to use a single attack that varies according to your current active character, and the A button makes you jump. That right there kind of shows you how half-hearted this game is. By 1990, belt-scrolling brawlers and fighters had both generally settled on pressing up to jump. It was established way back with Irem's Kung Fu in 1984 and carried through into games like the original Street Fighter. But here we are with a fighter that denies players the opportunity to allow very combat actions in favor of giving them a platformer-style jump command. Not that there's really any room for depth in this game. It has AI as brain-dead as its control scheme, and it's idiotically simplistic. It does become impossibly difficult by the time you reach the first boss, but that's not due to any particular game design brilliance, but rather because the first boss, a dude named Pharaoh, is preposterously cheap and almost impossible to hit. I'm sure his ability to create a clone of himself and somehow fail to take damage in any predictable way has some narrative tie to the manga, but as a game mechanic it just makes for a miserable, joyless wall that few players will ever overcome. I wrestled with it about a dozen times with the 3 characters the game gives me and never managed to beat him, so there you go. Up until about that point though, Meikoushima Kessen is ludicrously easy. Fighters jump around you aimlessly and you can literally win by standing in place and attacking as soon as they land. But then that's really about as much depth as the game mechanics can support. And really, did we expect anything more from a company like Yutaka? You ask? Yutaka? What do you have against them? This was the first game Yutaka ever published. Sure, but only under the name Yutaka. Before this, Yutaka went by the moniker Bandai Shinsei, a company whose only brush with anything resembling quality came in the wonderfully weird Monster Party for NES. But basically, Yutaka was a rebranded version of a Bandai offshoot that primarily dealt in cheap toys that Bandai didn't want to sully its own name with. Bandai Shinsei only managed to publish a single Game Boy title before entering the Witness Protection Program, and that one was a dud, the middling port of Jordan Mechner's KARATEKA that closed out Game Boy World 1989. Oh wait, come to think of it, Master KARATEKA was a fighting game from 1984 that featured vastly greater depth than Meikoushima Kessen. In short, this game is terrible, and nothing we'll see from Yutaka in the coming years will alter the trajectory established by the company's debut release. Oh well. Time on Game Boy World, the third of 1990's games about penguins. Morgan Freeman will guest narrate.